Welcome everyone to the Stewardship Hour. This month we will be talking about minimizing food waste. It seems an appropriate time as we think about cooking for the holidays, but might be cooking for less people. I know that it's difficult to sometimes cook for a smaller crowd without creating a bunch of food waste. So I thought this was kind of an appropriate topic for the times. And I'm excited to have Rebeka Pritchett here today to kind of be our wisdom here when it comes to minimizing food waste. And so, yeah, let's get started. So some quick background on what the Stewardship Hour is. The Stewardship Hour is organized by the Clean County Commission of James City County. My name is Emma Zarin Newman, and I am co-chair with Peg Borman of the Clean County Commission. And we started the Stewardship Hour as a way to keep citizens informed about county sustainability initiatives. One thing I will point out is that we are recording today's meeting so that it can be shared with the county and it can be put onto the public access channel and the YouTube channels. So we meet every month, the second Thursday of the month at 5:30 to talk about a myriad of topics. We've talked about pollinators, we've talked about compost, we've talked about recycling and recycling in schools, and next our topic will be stormwater, so that's pretty exciting. Today we are going to analyze the food wasting habits of our homes and our community. We'll evaluate how we can minimize food waste in our own homes, and we'll understand various ways of helping others access to food, and we're also going to learn about some economic opportunities we can take in order to support businesses that are fighting the good fight. So today I want to just give a shout out to our expert today, Rebeka Pritchett. She is our chef and food waste expert. So if at any time you have a question for Rebeka, I'm going to ask you that you type it into our chat, and that way we can get through those questions appropriately. Rebeka, do you want to introduce yourself so that the folks know who you are? Oh, I'm sorry, Rebeka, I think you're muted.
Okay. Sorry, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry for my lighting. I got caught a little off guard. I have a really great plan for everything to do with stopping food waste, but a little bit background on me. I have been in the food industry for about 15 years. Started when I was very young, watching the Food Network. I went to culinary school back in New York, and I moved to Virginia about 7 years ago. And I have been working at Mary Immaculate Hospital as the executive chef there for the last almost 5 years. So, working for a hospital, working as an executive chef, we really focus on food waste and different things that you can do. So that's just a little bit background on me. So I'm just going to dive right into it so we can, get the information that we need to do and talk about. So one of the first things we should really look at whenever we're talking about anything is, why do we do what we do? So every year, the United States has about 30 to 40% food waste within the United States. And that's according to the US Department of Agriculture. And one of those problems in food waste, it directly affects our environment. So it costs money to transfer food from one place to the other because, as you know, bananas don't grow here in Virginia. We get them from down below in, the southern countries like Brazil or some places, Nicaragua, and that costs money to fly them up here, the manpower, and that uses up fuel, which is bad for the environment, which many people know. There's tons of studies on that. And when you take a banana and you buy it, but then you don't use it, that basically is just kind of a waste. So there's tons of things that we can do to prevent that. The very first thing that you want to do is plan accordingly. So, making sure that you know what you need before you buy it. Writing out grocery lists are really important. I'm a very big list person, making sure that I know what I need before I go and buy it. That's one way to manage your budget, but also to make sure you're not overspending and wasting food. And eventually it just goes bad, and then you wasted it by not using it. But then also you might not realize, okay, I bought 4 onions and I don't need all of the onions, and then it just sits in the refrigerator. So it's better to plan accordingly. organizing yourself, making sure that you're utilizing your freezer, using smaller portions, refreshing your veggies, using labels for all of the items in your food. So we'll touch base on all of those different things that I mentioned. So one, we'll talk about utilizing your freezer. So what I personally do is if I make, a large portion of food, for instance, yesterday I made beef stew. I have a lot of it left over and it's just me and my husband. So I'm going to utilize my freezer. I'm going to buy, freezer containers that are, that are recyclable, but also can stand the freezer. We have a chest freezer. So, we will definitely put all of those products that we have left over, like the beef stew I made after Thanksgiving. I had all this turkey left over. I made turkey noodle soup and I put them in containers and I put them in our chest freezer. And one, it saves me time if I'm having a busy day and we don't have money in our budget to buy pizza, well, I'll just go pull out that beef stew from the freezer, thaw it out, and we have a nice hearty meal in the middle of winter. So really utilizing your freezer, as well as, the freezer, it extends the dates of food and especially protein. So when we go to the grocery store, buying in bulk is a great thing, especially chicken and beef. One, it's less expensive, and you're able to break it down. So what I mean by breaking down is taking that large container and putting 2 or 3 pieces of chicken in a Ziploc bag and then putting it in the freezer. You could purchase the cryovac bags that they already have in the stores, but that's more money. If you take the extra 5 minutes just to do it yourself and then put a date on it of, typically meat lasts in the freezer about 3 to 4 months. So if you stock up and put it in the freezer, that's a really great way to save your food instead of just putting it into the refrigerator and then within a couple of weeks it's already gone bad. So really utilizing your freezer is the number one thing that you can do. I had mentioned buying smaller portions. If you don't need, and when I say buying smaller portions, I mean of like fresh vegetables, things that you can't freeze or things that are going to go bad. You want to make sure that you're buying accordingly. A lot of times people are like, oh, I'm going to buy, lettuce. I'm going to eat a salad this week and I'm going to have, all these veggies, and then they just sit in the fridge and they go back and bad. And that's a huge, way that we waste food. I do it a lot. I'm like, I'm going to have a salad every day this week. And then I finally get to the salad and half my lettuce has gone bad. And so I feel bad because I've wasted, all of the people who worked hard to make sure that these vegetables came fresh to me and I didn't even utilize them. So making sure that you're buying smaller portions. And when you do have something like that, where your vegetables go bad, there is a way to refresh your vegetables. One, again, the same way with how I had talked about breaking down, your meats when you buy in bulk, you can take some of those vegetables out of those containers and put them in Tupperware containers with a wet damp cloth, and especially with lettuces and herbs, that will refresh them. Let's say you have a stalk of celery and it's a little limp, if you put that if you slice off the edge of the stem and you put that into some water, it will actually, within an hour or so, it will refresh the celery, just because the celery is hydrated in the refrigerator. So when you do that, you're refreshing the vegetables. You can do the same thing with lettuces, get a bowl of cold ice water and taking the lettuce and shocking it into the cold water, and that will help the lettuce basically, become really hydrated and refresh itself. So there's tons of ways that you can research doing those for each different type of vegetable. And a lot of times if I have some salad, some lettuce, romaine that's a little wilted, I'll do that and it will come right back to life, which is great. The other thing is staying organized. I don't know if anybody knows the term FIFO. It's a term that we use in kitchens a lot. It's called first in and first out. Basically, when we purchase something in, the restaurants or in the hospital, what came in first is the first thing that should be used. Putting labels on things, checking expirations, that stuff should be moved to the front of your fridge, and the stuff that is newer should be in the back. So that way you're not forgetting about something that was, in the back of the fridge and then it goes bad and then, you wasted it that way. So really making sure that you're putting things that are older in the front, so you will use them first. So really using FIFO to your advantage. Putting dates on things. I have a little piece of masking tape right next to my refrigerator with a marker. And whenever I make something that I know is going to stay in the refrigerator, I'll put the date on it of when I made it. So, if I'm making that beef stew, for instance, and I'm going to keep it in the refrigerator, I'm going to put, yesterday's date on it when I made it. And typically food lasts about 5 days or so. So then, okay, today, well, I made it yesterday. That was Wednesday. So by Monday, I should really eat this. We really need to utilize this, or else we're going to have to throw it away. And instead of sitting there going, when did I make that tuna? I can't remember. You have the date on it, and it's in front of your face, and you can see, okay, we really need to eat this. Those are some things that you can do just for yourself in your own home. So yeah, really making sure that you're utilizing things that, when they start to go back, I had talked about refreshing your vegetables. Let's say you have a vegetable that is a little too far gone. What can we do with it? Don't throw it away. There's several things you can do. One, you could make soups out of it. You can make chicken stock or vegetable stock out of it. There's still, as long as it doesn't have, mold and it's not completely deteriorated, you can still use that. And if it is to that point where it is moldy, then the best thing to do is you can compost. And compost is a really great way to give back to the environment. Eggshells and are really great for the ground. I save eggshells when I'm gardening in the springtime. They're a really great source of nutrients. And the same thing with just any sort of vegetable. And I know sometimes people might be in an apartment complex and they're like, oh, I don't want to compost because it smells. And I get that, but there are also, you can buy certain composting, like small units that can go outside of, let's say on a balcony, and you just go and throw it in there, and you're able to, have it start to break down. And then you can actually, if you know somebody, maybe you have a family member who has a home and you're like, hey, I have all this compost, you want to come pick it up, and it'll be really great for your garden. So really making sure that you're not throwing food away, because it'll end up in the landfill, and then there's no benefit whatsoever, and it's only losses, and it's a loss on the environment as well. So yeah, food waste is one of the biggest things in the industry, especially now with COVID, with how everything's been, going on. When COVID first hit, there were tons of companies that just couldn't keep up with the food, and a lot of the farmers unfortunately had to throw away a lot of their product. And it when I read things like that, it makes me sad, because I know it directly affects us and it directly affects our environment. One of the reasons why, becoming a vegetarian and becoming vegan is so important nowadays is mainly because of the cattle industry and how much CO2 the cattle are putting off. And it's, like I said, it's a waste. If we slaughter that animal, we hurt our environment by doing that, and then we don't even use the product properly. So really just being mindful of the fact of, what you're doing personally for, you're in your own kitchen. Inventory yourself, audit your pantry, keep track of your waste, pay attention to what you throw away, and maybe next time don't buy that. There was a period of time where my husband and I kept buying tomatoes. I kept buying cherry tomatoes, and every time I'd eat a salad, I kept pushing the cherry tomatoes around my plate, and my husband kept saying, why aren't you eating those? I'm like, oh, I don't really like them. And he goes, well, why do you keep buying them? I don't know, because I feel like I should put cherry tomatoes in a salad, so sometimes really just paying attention and doing a self-audit on yourself of, I keep buying this, but I'm not really using it. I think I'm going to use it, but I'm trying to be better, but I'm not. And it's just going right into the garbage. So, take, like I said, inventory your pantry, see what you have in there that you can utilize. Meal plan is a really great way to really make sure that you are able to keep track of everything that you're doing and utilize what you have. Go through your freezer, inventory what you have in your freezer. I have a bunch of meat in there. I have some ground beef. Let's make tacos on Tuesday. What can I use in my my dry pantry. I have canned tomatoes. I have beans. I have flour tortillas. I have chips. Let's make nachos. Things like that, where you're looking at your whole kitchen as opposed to just buying pizza. I think a lot of times, and especially the world of trying to be convenient, having that option, especially now with DoorDash and Uber Eats, going out and buying things is easier. And then the stuff that sits in your fridge just goes to waste. But that's why meal planning is really important. If you're able to plan out what you have, how to use it, because you did your inventory and you know what needs to get used, because you did your FIFO and you know that this needs to go first because it's going to go bad. And then you're able to actually really utilize everything in your own house. There are other really great ways of learning how to preserve food: canning, freezing, drying, fermenting, etc. Fermenting is a really, really great way of preserving old foods, but it's something that really needs to be researched as well as canning. But it's not hard if you find the proper tools. There's tons of Facebook groups out there where you can go out and find out this information, as well as websites. I mean, we live in the age of information. My husband and I went apple picking back in September, and we had like 2 bushels of apples, and they were just sitting on my counter. And I was really feeling guilty because we had all these apples. I wanted to use them, but I didn't want to have apple pie every day. So I did some actual research on how to really properly can and do it the correct way, so that way there wouldn't be any botulism. And I canned about 15 cans of applesauce and about 10 cans of apples. I partially cooked the apples, and then I put them in the can, and I had them in my storage. And then when Thanksgiving came around, about 2 months later, I made apple crisp out of it, and it was delicious, and it was super easy. And I didn't buy it out of a can. It was an apple that I picked. I felt super accomplished on Thanksgiving because it was an apple that I picked, an apple that I canned, and then I made a crisp out of it, instead of just going to Walmart and buying a canned apple that has all sorts of preservatives in it that I don't know what's in. And that was a really good self of accomplishment for myself. And that was something that back in the day, that's what everybody did. And we've gone away from that. We've gone away from preserving, canning, because our lives are so busy. And I get it. Trust me, I get it. I work, 15-hour days sometimes, 4 or 5 days a week. And it's hard sometimes to sit down and to do that. But like I said, if you are able to plan how you want to run your kitchen in your own home and how you want to have things laid out, you can control how much of the food waste that you do. The other thing is, I had mentioned, getting Ziploc containers and getting, Tupperware containers. There are tons of eco-friendly Tupperware containers. And instead of using Ziploc bags, I've been trying out their like beeswax cloths. So it's cloth that has, covered in beeswax. I made them myself. And they're a really great way of preserving vegetables and cheeses. I was actually quite surprised of how well it preserved a lemon I had wrapped up. And it's wax, so it closes on itself, and it warms up in your own hand when you're, wrapping the whole thing and the whole product, whatever you're using, whether it's an apple or, some cheese or, but it really helps preserve it. And then I feel less guilty because I'm not using plastic. So that's another really great way to help preserve your food. But all of these things, all of this information that I gave out, I did a lot. I work in the field, and so this is sort of second nature to me. But there's tons of information. There is a blog where there's even more information that I got a lot of this information from, and it's called The American Chemistry. And I just was looking up reasons why we package our food. Why do we package our food the way that we do? Why are we trying to preserve the food? and a lot of it, like I said, has to do with, the environment and making sure that we're doing our part to help the environment. And sometimes I think that people kind of lose sight. They're like, well, I'm one person, what can I do? But if, we have 30 people on this call, or however many people are on this call, and each one of us does our part, that can make a huge impact. Just doing a small amount. I know that sometimes global warming and trying to help the environment can seem overwhelming, but it seems overwhelming when you think about doing it by yourself. So the best thing that you can also do is give this information to other people. Have conversations around the dining room table, have conversations with your family, just be like, hey, I started canning. I started doing this. I watched a seminar. I joined a seminar online, and learned how to can. And I canned, green beans this year. And oh, that's interesting. Well, why did you do that? Well, because I just found that I was throwing out too much stuff, and I wanted to try and preserve the vegetables that I had, or I just want to try and learn a new skill. I mean, especially right now with COVID, everyone's taking up new skills, learning how to knit, learning how to blog, learning how to scrapbook. Why not learn how to can or how to ferment something? It's a really great way to learn, but also it's a great way for you to help preserve. It's a great way for you to help the environment. And it's a great way for you to, pass your time during this time of COVID, as well as you get a treat afterwards. I mean, think of it that way. Like, you knit, yeah, you get a blanket, you scrapbook, yeah, you get a little, you get a scrapbook. But when you do something with food, whether it's baking or fermenting, you get food afterwards. I mean, that's always a plus, always a plus. So yeah, that's pretty much my presentation. That's pretty much what I have for you guys. I will take any questions if anybody has any of them for me right now.
So let's see. We have a question in the chat. I think this is from Shannon. Oops, I'm sorry. Sorry, guys. Let me go back to that. Have you heard of the cell-based meat? And if so, what is your view on it?
That's the food-based or the plant-based meal is that what they're talking about? Yeah. So I like the idea of it. I like the idea of cutting down the amount of meat that we do produce in this country. I'm not a huge I love meat, not gonna lie. I'm a big red meat eater, but I also don't do it every day, and I do understand the impacts that it has. And I do like that they're starting to come out with different options. And I have had multiple options. I really like the Impossible Burger, and they have it where it's not just a burger, but it's a whole bulk of meat, which I like because for me as a chef, I can use that in multiple different ways. I don't have to use it just as a burger. I can make tacos out of it. I can make sausage out of it. I could make, baked ziti and have it in there like it's meat. And I think that I think people should be open-minded to it and try it out. I understand that some of the products, they might have some things that people are allergic to, and so they tend to stay away, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If you can't eat it because of your dietary restrictions, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just making sure that you're trying to do your part to help out in ways that you can.
Thank you so much, Rebeka. I feel like I just downloaded so much information.
I'm sorry, I know it was a lot. I hope I didn't throw it out too quickly.
Great. Thank you. Seriously, thank you so much. So for the rest of the presentation, I hope I maybe collected some snippet of the information that Rebeka gave us.
Yeah, no, you did great.
That was like so thorough. I love it. What I've done is I was sort of typing up notes as Rebeka was going. I've copied it, and I will put it onto this slide. So if you haven't been here to the Stewardship Hour before, this presentation I always turn into a PDF, and if you leave me your email at the end, I can send it to you, and there are clickable links. Anything that's purple, you can actually click and go down a wormhole on the internet to go read more about that topic. So before I share it, I will put this information onto this slide so that we can have kind of the top 10 bullet points from Rebeka. Thank you so much, Rebeka.
Absolutely, no problem.
So yeah, so we'll just talk about a couple different things we can do now that we know about food waste minimization. What can we do about it? So first, Rebeka talked a lot about this. I think she did much better than what this slide will show you, but is our individual behavior change. That's always where it starts, right? In our home, we try things out on our own before we can encourage others to do the same. So I had written down a couple of themes that show up in my research: meal planning, making conscious food purchases, using up ingredients, being aware of expiration dates. I love the idea of the labeling with masking tape. That just makes so much sense. And storing food carefully. I did want to share, there's a blog called The Scrappy Chef, which is sort of a food blog that gives you ideas on what to do with those random things you have left over. One example that I saw on there was what to do with a pickle jar. So after you finish your pickles, you still have all this awesome pickling juice. And so if you obviously keep it refrigerated in the right way and do a little bit of research on your own, if you were to stick cucumbers in there and wait for a certain amount of time, you're going to start over with the whole pickle thing. So there's just some neat ideas on there. They're really creative. You can keep it going. So it's highlighted in purple. If you look at this PDF on your own after this presentation, you can click that picture and go to the Scrappy Chef, or you can look it up on your own. I think it'll pop up right away. I did want to share that we do, as a country, have a national food waste reduction goal to reduce our waste by 50% by the year 2030. And that obviously is not going to happen without individual behavior change. And so it starts with us. The next aspect is volunteer action. Now, the Clean County Commission, we were talking about volunteer action for food waste minimization, and we did really want to put out there that we hope everyone can stay home, stay safe. We don't want to encourage people to be going out too much right now. But if you are looking to help those in our community, especially in the vein of food, we did want to share the information for House of Mercy. There are a couple different ways that you can help them out during this holiday season with getting food into the hands of people who need it. Also, if you want to be a part of these conversations, such as the Stewardship Hour, the education aspect of what we do, as well as want to get involved in some longer lasting change in our community, we are going to have a meeting in January on the first Thursday. Actually, Peg, is it the first Thursday that we're doing it, or is it the second? Now that I think about it. I'll have to get Peg to give us the information on that one. I don't want to misspeak. But we are having a meeting in January that we'll be sending out information to our Keep James City County Beautiful volunteers, so we can get our subcommittees together and meeting a little bit more. So I'll update you guys on the date towards the end. We always report on contacting the powers that be. So in this instance, one thing we thought that people could do if you wanted to promote the idea of food waste and minimizing it, you could ask your favorite restaurant about their food waste policy. Start the conversation, not in any sort of accusatory way, but I think that most people might not realize that more than 70% of people care about the handling of their food waste, and 47% of people say that they're willing to pay more to eat at a restaurant that has a good food waste policy in place. So it might be that your favorite restaurant already does have this policy, and that maybe they're not promoting it as much, and that it'd be good for them to know that, hey, we'd love to know this. Or maybe they're not even aware that their patrons would be interested in such a policy. So I think just getting the awareness out there, having those friendly conversations, and opening up a dialogue about food waste with our local restaurants and the restaurants that you go to is a good start. All right. One thing we were going to give a plug for here is ways to support the economy when it comes to minimizing food waste is secondary markets. So there's two stores online stores I wanted to promote here that have really piqued my interest during this last year. So there's Misfits Market and Imperfect Foods. They are both ugly produce delivery services. So basically the ugly apples and pears and potatoes and vegetables and fruits that are too ugly to make it to the shelves in the store because they won't sell, you can actually order them to be delivered to your house at a reduced rate, since they're not the beautiful produce that goes to Trader Joe's. So there's some information here and a website to link to the information that is cited here, but some quick benefits of using a program like this is that it's cost effective. The prices are usually 30 to 50% less than the produce you'd get in the store. You end up saving time. There are delivery companies, and in these days and age, we might not all want to be running to the store every day for our smaller portions of vegetables. So here's another great option. Healthy eating. You'll end up eating more fruits and vegetables because you'll be pressured to eat them. I can vouch for this personally. After my vegetable deliveries from a local farm this summer, I think I only ate vegetables, which is awesome, but challenging. You end up doing more inventive meals, getting more creative with what you have. You have a turnip and some kale, make dinner. You end up getting pretty creative and trying out new recipes, and that's kind of a great fun side of food. And it's good for the environment. Buying produce from these services helps reduce food waste. These companies also have done due diligence to ensure that food pantries are not receiving fewer donations. So there's some great ways to support the economy. Another quick note worth mentioning is that there often are opportunities to buy foods that are about to expire in stores. They might see the certain baskets that stores or restaurants might put out to encourage people to buy the food that is about to go bad but hasn't gone bad yet. And if you know that you'll be eating it soon, support those opportunities. I think those are very smart by those organizations. You can do that on your own too, just by reading expiration dates. But one example I thought of here was the cheese shop usually has their bread ends. That's a way of getting rid of that excess food for a cheaper or reduced rate, but without having to throw away all those extra bread ends. It's kind of a nice thing to be able to go pick up some fresh bread, even if you're just going to be dipping it into some sauce. All right, and the other way you can get involved and promote minimizing food waste is to share the video of this Zoom. So after you fill out the exit ticket at the end of this presentation, I can send the link to this video as well as the PDF of this presentation to your email, and you can feel free to share it with friends, neighbors, organizations, schools, whoever you think might want to engage in this dialogue about minimizing food waste. So here we are with our exit ticket. I'm going to send it in just a second to the chat. Please be sure to fill it out. We really encourage every single person listening to the Stewardship Hour to please fill it out. It really helps. The feedback for the Stewardship Hour helps me plan the next one. And it is good to know, to find out what you learned today. There's a little pop quiz that you didn't know about, but now you do. It's also where we keep track of what people are volunteering are pledging to volunteer, or actions you're committing to. That way we know what people are interested, what kind of actions people are interested in taking on behalf of the environment and on behalf of sustainability. For more information, there are some resources here that will be a part of the PDF. So before you fill out that exit ticket, just know that there's a lot of resources that come along with this PDF. So you might want to request it sent to you. Next time we'll be talking about stormwater management, and that'll be an interesting conversation. That'll be in January, the second Thursday in January. So at this time, please take a look in the chat for your exit ticket survey. I see another question in the chat as well. So hopefully while people are clicking on that and filling it out, maybe Rebeka, you wouldn't mind answering this question. Is the donation of food by organizations and restaurants highly regulated? Actually, I'm not sure the answer to
that. So that's kind of a difficult question, because most food, like restaurants, don't have food that is donated to them. Mainly because we can't through the health department. So I'm not sure if that's really the meaning of the question, is donation of food organization restaurant. I mean, in if we are donating food to other organizations, then yes. There's some things that we just can't. Most of the time you can't send over food that's going to, expire if there is no refrigeration. We still have to keep in mind of food safety. So a lot of times things that are donated are things that are either shelf stable or things that have not been cooked yet, as long as the place that we're donating to has a refrigeration system. So for instance, if, an unopened thing of cheese or an unopened thing of, maybe milk, but we can't technically send over food that has been prepared, like let's say lasagna, unless we know that it's being served right away, and that they have something to keep it in the right temperature. Because, there's keeping things in the proper temperature. There's certain zones, according to the health department, where it has to be a certain temperature degree to be safe to eat for other people consuming it. So that's why they say, shelf stable things. So like bakeries will donate bread, and that's perfectly acceptable, because they're able to, because it's not going to go bad. It might be a little stale, but it's not going to be something that is gone absolutely rotten from not being heated or refrigerated. But a lot of, like us at the hospital, we actually have a compost program. That's how we are able to do our sort of donation or helping in the economy or the environment. We have certain garbage cans. We have four green garbage cans throughout the kitchen, and they all have compostable bags in them. And any food that can be compostable, we put in there. So no plastic, no cardboard, no garbage, no cans, just produce, meats, things like that. They go into those garbage bags, and then we have certain garbage cans where those are put out, and then we have a company who comes and picks that up, and then they are the ones who finish the composting process. And that's really like that. When I see how much we're able to help in that way, that makes me happy, because we're able to distribute help. We're able to help in that way, but we can't necessarily give out food. I hope that answers the question. Yes, no.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Rebeka. I think that was
no
great.
problem.
I do want to clarify the dates. So for our Keep James City County Beautiful meeting, it will be on January 7th, the first Thursday of the new year. And our next Stewardship Hour will be on January 14th, the second Thursday of the new year. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. If anyone is having any trouble accessing that exit ticket, I'd be happy to stick around and help them out. Other than that, if there are no other questions, then have a wonderful evening, and thank you all so much for joining us tonight, and see you all next month for stormwater management.